Sales is the lifeblood of every business. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through everything that I know about creating a great sales process as quick as I possibly can. We're going to look at what happens inside a great sales meeting, and we're going to deconstruct it into 10 points. I'm going to tell you about my sales follow-up process. And I'm also going to tell you how to get warm and qualified leads into the sales pipeline. We're going to string it all together into one methodology that I call LAPS. LAPS stands for leads, appointments, presentations, and sales. And when you get a LAPS rhythm going in your business every single week, you cannot help but grow into a much more successful business. I've got some honest advice at the end as to why people trip up in their sales presentations. And I'm also going to give you some really good tips as to how to use AI to ramp this process right up. It's so easy on YouTube to just take good content for granted. With this particular video, I want you to remember it's taken me 25 years to share all the things I'm about to share with you for free. And if you do this, you're going to end up bigger and more profitable than your wildest dreams. Let's get into it. Step one is you have to understand something called LAPS. LAPS. That is the engine room of your business. LAPS stands for leads, appointments, presentations, and sales. It's the flow of opportunity that connects attention and interest through to money in the bank. So what we're going to do is we're going to really break up the LAPS framework into leads and appointments, which is finding opportunities, and presentations and sales, which is making money. Now, you definitely want to stick around for the presentation and sales bit because that's where the money hits the bank. Step one, let's get you more warm leads. Don't skip ahead. I know you want to get to the presentation bit. I know you want to get to more sales, but let's start by expanding your pipeline. How do we get more warm leads? We're going to get more warm leads with this 3-part system that has been proven academically and practically in the real world. The 3 parts is short form content into long form content into signals of interest. Let me just break it down nice and simply. In order for people to become a lead who's warm and in your pipeline, they have to get to notice you and get to know you so that they can signal interest that they want to work with you. How are they going to notice you? They're going to notice you through short form content on social media. Now, the research says that people notice you for the first time when they see you for the 11th time. So you've got to produce a lot more content so that people have the opportunity to see you 11 times. Now, the harsh reality is that the clock resets every 90 days. So if they don't see you 11 times within 90 days, they don't notice that you ever exist. So that means at a bare minimum, you've got to be posting every few days on social media. My recommendation is that if you're not posting every single day on social media, you're leaving money on the table. For a small business, I recommend choosing one platform. And then when you're a bigger business, I recommend choosing 4 platforms and posting every single day. Now, what are you going to post? You're going to post anything at all that hooks the attention of your perfect customer. So you're going to have an ideal customer in mind. You're going to share with them things that could be strange, things that they've never heard before. You could share with them amazing, desirable outcomes that they want to get. You could share with them free value, or you could talk about familiar topics that they already want to know about. These are some of the things that will go into that short form content. Short form content is anything that can be experienced by a customer in 1 to 3 minutes. It's posts, it's images, it's short videos, it's carousels, just coming out there, and it just lands on social media every single day. And it typically has a call to action, which is to go to your main account and experience some long form content. Now, what is long form content? Long form content is the type of content that takes 10 minutes to 2 hours to consume. It could be a long post, it could be a PDF report, it could be a 10-minute video, it could be a 1-hour podcast episode, or it could be a 2-hour workshop that you invite people to. What we're looking for is just to clock up time with people. See, there is some research from Professor Robin Dunbar that says people need to spend 2 to 7 hours with you in order to feel like they know you and trust you. So one of the first things that you want to do is get more people consuming long form content. The short form content drives people to the long form content. My personal experience tells me that you should have 4 pieces of long form content available for people to watch, read, or listen to. You don't need that on day 1. You're going to build up to having 4 pieces of long form content across the course of 12 months. And it could be podcast episodes that you go on. It could be longer videos that produce, longer reports that you write, or maybe even a book. Either way, your short form content gets people to consume some of this long form content. All of that is happening on social media. Once people have consumed some long form content, you then want to ask them to signal their interest. You want a signal of interest that says, I'm interested to know more. I want to work with you in some way. So there's a few things that work really, really well for a signal of interest. You can ask people to join a waiting list. You can ask people to fill in a form as an expression of interest. You can ask people to fill in an assessment where they take an online assessment to see if they're ready to work with you. You can get people to join a discussion group, or one of my favorites is to get people to join a live webinar. When they register for any of these things, you can count that as a strong signal of interest that they're interested in what it is that you do. Now, the reason that you know that this is a signal of interest is because All of this short form and long form content happens on social media, but the signal of interest happens on your landing page. In order for people to go to the landing page, they have to have seen you on social media, clicked a link, gone across to a landing page, and filled in a form, which means they've given you a strong signal of interest. And when we get those signals of interest, we have a special name for that. We call that a lead. Now, if you want to ramp this up, you can do it in two ways. Number one, you can pick your highest performing short form content and you can boost it with ads. Additionally, you can fire off direct messages to carefully selected individuals who you think would either enjoy your long form content or who you think should be filling in a signal of interest page. So you can use direct messages as well. And if all of this is working well, you can collaborate with others who have a similar audience that you're trying to target, but they have a non-competitive offer, and you can work together through joint ventures or sponsorships in order to ramp up the number of people who know who you are. But all of that needs to culminate in these signals of interest that we're going to call leads. Now, once you've got leads, you can move to the next step. So you've generated some leads. Now it's time to book some appointments. Now, bear in mind, we haven't even gotten into the value where the money's going to hit the bank. Stay with me. This is meant to be a training video. It's not meant to be a short piece of content that you consume as you're scrolling. This is designed to be a game changer for your sales process. So stay with me. Keep your pen and paper. Let's keep learning together. As soon as someone fills in a lead page, you want to follow up as quick as possible. And you have one goal when you're reaching out to someone, and that is to book an appointment. It's to get a commitment that they're willing to spend some time with you. You see, the first sale is not about the product. It's about getting people to commit that they're going to explore what you have to offer. It's a commitment of time, not a commitment of money. So there are 4 steps to booking an appointment. Step 1 is to reaffirm relevance. You want to let people know that they filled in a form, that they were interested in a particular topic, and now you're following up. So you're letting them know that there is relevance. Step 2 is an optional step if you're using the phone to follow up, and that is to ask permission. This is where you say, have I caught you at a good time? I've got 1 to 2 minutes to follow up based upon the fact that you filled in that form. Can I be really, really quick and just share with you who I am, why I'm calling, and see if it's appropriate to set an appointment with you? So that's just getting some permission. If you're using asynchronous communication like text messages or emails, you don't need the permission step. Step 3 is where you're going to pitch your value so that they know whether they want to commit to an appointment. So here's what we're going to do with the pitch. The pitch is that you're going to use the framework name, same, fame, pain, aim, and game. And we call this a hook pitch or a social pitch. So name is obviously your name and your business's name. So who are you and where are you calling from? Same is what is something similar to what they already understand, they already know, that you can put yourself in that category. If I'm talking about one of my businesses called Book Magic, I say we are an online piece of software that helps people to write a book much faster than if they were using Microsoft Word. I'm putting myself into a category called software, and I'm comparing myself to something similar that they might already know. Fame is what makes you special or different. This could be a special number that you've achieved. It could be a special association or an award that you've won, something that makes you stand out. So if I was talking about Book Magic, I might say we recently won AI Startup of the Year, which is a little bit of fame. Now, I might also say something like we've already worked with 300 customers. Or you might say I've worked in this industry for over 10 years and I've worked with big brands that you've heard of such as X, Y, and Z. So pain is where you address the pain or frustration that people experience before they buy from you. I might say if I'm talking about Book Magic, over 50% of the population want to write a book, but less than 2% of the population ever achieve that goal. So I'm now talking about a pain or a frustration. And then aim is what you aim to do about that. So you might say, we're creating a software platform that allows 10 times more people who start a book to finish the process and hold that book in their hands. And then game is the bigger vision of what your business wants to achieve. Our goal is to democratize the book writing process as much as Amazon democratized the book distribution process. So all of that should fit pretty neatly into about 30 to 45 seconds if you were to say it out loud, and it should fit into a paragraph if you put it in a text or an email. So you're giving people all the essential information for them to understand what you're talking about. Name, same, fame, pain, aim, and a game. After you've gotten that across, you then want to ask if they're willing to commit to having an appointment. So you simply say, what I'd really love to do is set a time that we could talk. And here's the link to my diary, or if you can suggest a few times that work for you, I'll try and work around your schedule. Now, if someone is interested, they're going to definitely try and make a time with you. Or if someone has heard all of that information about who you are and what you do and why you do it, and they're not interested, I can promise you it's better to just end things right there. You're not looking for everybody to set an appointment. It's very normal for out of every 12 leads, for less than half of them to set an appointment. Now, before we move on, as an advanced step, if you start getting lots of leads come through your pipeline, you want to introduce a step called lead qualification. Lead qualification is that when people fill in that online signal of interest form, you're going to ask a few questions. You're going to ask people which best describes your current situation, which best describes the outcome you're looking for, which types of solutions do you already have in mind. You might ask a few of those qualifying questions, and those qualifying questions help you to choose who you're going to have an appointment with. So in the early days, it's often the case that it's worth having an appointment with anyone who's willing to have an appointment with you just to hone your skills. Once you start scaling up, you want to qualify your appointments so you're not wasting time on people who are never going to buy. Now, by the way, we've completely solved this problem. If you want to set up one of these signal of interest landing pages, you can do all of that on ScoreApp, and ScoreApp.com has templates that allow you to set up those campaigns effortlessly. In addition to that, it automatically gets you to ask those questions, those qualifying questions, so that you can segment your list and only deal with lots of leads that are already qualified. So if you haven't done so already, check out ScoreApp.com, which is a business that I'm involved in, and it allows you to set up your lead generation effortlessly. Now, when you're reaching out to people, they don't really care about the business or you personally. They care about getting their problem solved. So it doesn't really matter whether you say that you're talking about you personally or whether you say that you're representing a business. What matters most is that you're connecting with the problem or frustration that they're experiencing. This little bit here called the pain, if you hone that in so that people can relate to that problem, then you're going to book the appointment. We've talked about leads, we've talked about appointment setting. Now it's time to talk about the presentation. Now, the presentation is where you make your money. This is where people either connect with what you have to offer or they drop it from here. The difference between a fast growth business and a business that stalls is often how you present it. This presentation is a major component to the growth and success of your business. I don't care if you've already got 500,000 to 5 million of revenue or you're just starting out. If you improve your presentation, you're going to overtake your competition. Now, presentations aren't easy. Get ready. I want you to have a pen and paper. We are going to go through what I normally cover in a day. We're going to do it in a few minutes. So I want you to be ready to take all of this in. A great sales presentation has 10 components. And these 10 components, you got to get all of these right if you want to make consistent sales. Component number 1 is called framing. Framing is your ability to show up as high value before you've even opened your mouth. Everything that people experience prior to the sales meeting or at the very beginning of the sales meeting is the framing of the sales meeting. Now, for example, when you go into an Apple store and you meet an Apple genius, just the fact that they've called them Apple geniuses, it gives them a framing that is more than a salesperson on a retail floor. If I was going to meet you for a sales meeting and you said, I want to meet you in a Starbucks coffee shop or I want to meet you in the foyer of a really beautiful hotel, just the difference in that decision sets a completely different frame. Even when you meet someone online using Zoom or Microsoft Teams or something like that, the framing is still important. Have you ever met someone on Zoom and you can see a messy bedroom behind them? That is really bad framing. It just ruins professionalism straight away. It would have been so much better had they created a branded virtual background, something that screams professionalism as opposed to dirty laundry. Now, that's just an extreme example of framing, but extrapolate that in any way that you want to. So great salespeople, they pay attention to how they frame their sales meetings. They meet in the right place. They communicate in advance. They show up powerfully. Everything about that whole initial experience communicates trust and authority. The next thing we want to do is build rapport. Rapport is a fancy word for the friendly little bits of chit chat that you have at the beginning of a sales meeting in order to connect. Great salespeople are experts at creating rapport. They don't have to spend 15, 20, or 30 minutes. They can build rapport in just a few minutes and then get into the sales meeting. A few little rules with rapport: use the person's name, find some common interest, smile, be polite, be complimentary. If you know people in common or you've got things in common, you can reference that. All of that rapidly builds rapport. Now, once you've built rapport, I want you to do something where you ask people permission in order to go into a sales process. So here's how I like to do it. I say something like, we can either have a bit of a chit chat today and get to know each other, or I've got a bit of a process where I can ask you a series of questions and then give you some recommendations as to what to do next. Would you like to have a chit chat or are you happy to go through the process? Now, what most people do is they say, I'm more interested in going through the process. Either way, I'm going to go through the same sort of steps, whether it's in a relaxed way as a chit chat or a more professional way as a process. I'm going to hit these same bases regardless. So what are these bases? The first thing we have to do is find out what is their present situation. The present situation is how they would describe the current situation they're in and what's less than perfect about it. So if I was selling something like coaching or consulting, I'd ask them all sorts of questions about their existing business and what they've noticed that hasn't lived up to expectations. And we would call that their present situation. The next thing we want to know is their desired outcome, which I like to call their prize. People don't buy products and services. People buy access to the prize or the desired outcome that they're looking to achieve. If I told you that you could buy a Ferrari, but you're never allowed to drive it and you've got to always keep it in storage, you wouldn't be excited about Ferrari ownership. The only reason you'd be excited to have a Ferrari is because it fits within a movie that you like to play in your mind about what Ferrari ownership would be like. You imagine yourself with somebody special driving across an incredible landscape in the Ferrari, and the sound is there and the sun is out and all of those things are there, and that's what you imagine Ferrari ownership would be like. If I told you you were not allowed to drive the car and you had to keep it in storage, you'd have no interest because it doesn't match up to the prize that you're imagining. The key to great sales is to understand the movie that somebody plays in their mind when they think about what it would be like to own your product or service, when they think about what would be on the other side of owning your product or service. The next thing is to understand the problem. The problem is that you've tried to achieve this prize in the past, but you keep bumping into problems. Or you might ask, do you have any criteria that is important to you in getting the thing that you want to get to? Here we have a dynamic, and the dynamic is that there is a present situation that's less than perfect, there's a prize that would be much better, and there are problems that sit in the way that have to be solved in order to get to the prize. Now, you as the salesperson need to clarify this situation. You need to understand these three elements before you make any recommendations about products or services. I want you to think of this as almost like having 3 baskets, and you've got to fill each basket full to the brim. You need to really understand the present situation and what that looks like and why it's less than perfect. You really need to understand fully what is the prize and all the elements that go around it. And you really have to understand all the obstacles, criteria, and problems that sit in the way. When you've filled up those 3 baskets, you're going to feel a sense of confidence that when you present what it is you have to offer, it's going to be a perfect fit with their worldview. Now, in a good sales call, there's a balance between speaking and listening. Now, in this first section of the sales meeting, you're doing a lot of asking questions and you're getting them to do a lot of speaking. The goal here is for them to talk and to share as much as they can about their situation, where they are now, where they want to be, what's in the way. At this point in the sales meeting, you're doing a lot of listening and not a lot of talking. You're just asking questions. But all of that's about to change. We're going to change gear from listening to speaking, and we're going to cover 3 important bases. Base number 1 is sharing insights. Base number 2 is sharing a method, and base number 3 is sharing a solution. Salespeople who fail, they jump straight to the solution. They go straight into the product or the service that they want to sell, and they skip the insights and the methods. Salespeople who do okay but not brilliantly, they go into a method, then a solution, and the best salespeople in the world, they go to insights first, then method, then solution. The best salespeople in the world are the ones that are prepared with special insights that give them authority. So what is an insight? An insight is a big picture perspective that allows people to better understand their situation. This is where you share something like a framework or you share something like research. It has nothing to do with your product or service. It helps people to understand that you've seen their situation before and you know their world better than they know their world. So for example, when we talk about dent accelerators, we never start talking about the accelerator, which is the solution, and we don't talk about the 5 Ps, which is how to become a key person of influence. We talk about the idea that founder-led growth is an essential element that gets you from $500,000 to $5 million of revenue. We spell it out through something called the entrepreneurial journey, and we show people that if they understand this entrepreneurial journey and they understand the concept of founder-led growth, then they're well placed to rapidly grow their business where their current revenue becomes smaller than their future profit. Now, that insight leads into the question, well, then how do I achieve founder-led growth? And the method is the 5-step framework that we have called the 5 Ps to becoming a key person of influence. So the insight leads nicely into the methodology. Now, let me give you some other examples. If I was to talk to an amazing fitness trainer, the fitness trainer would not start by telling me that I need a fitness trainer. They wouldn't start by telling me the gym routines that I need to be executing on and the diet plans that I need. They might start with something like the role of hormones in weight loss. They might tell me the reason that I've struggled in the past is not because of the number of times I've been working out, but because I haven't addressed an underlying hormonal issue. And they might tell me that the methodology for addressing that involves sleep, exercise, diet, and supplementation. Now, from there, they're well placed to then tell me about their solution. And the solution would be all of those things packaged together. So we need to go from an insight into a methodology, then into a solution. We do not pitch the solution until we've first addressed the insights and the methods first. I promise you, this is going to be the major difference between low conversions at a low price and high conversions at a high price. Now, the homework that you're going to have to do separate to this video is you're going to have to construct what I call your golf bag of insights and methods. And the golf bag analogy is this. If you're a golfer, you've got different clubs in the bag and they're suitable for different situations. So you have a putter for when you're on the green and a driver for when you're teeing off, and you have a sand wedge for if you find yourself in the sand trap. And it's all about knowing which club goes with which situation. So what you need to do is develop 5 to 10 insights and methods that you're going to use when you encounter different situations. So if someone tells you about their prize and they're looking for a particular outcome and you've got an insight that relates to that prize, that's already there. It's in your golf bag. You've rehearsed it. You've practiced it. If someone says that they're struggling with a particular problem and you know that a certain methodology relates to that problem, it's in your insights golf bag. It's ready to go. You pull it out at the right time. So great salespeople, they have this mental golf bag of insights and methods that are perfect for when they encounter certain situations with potential clients. All of those insights and all of those methods lead people to the conclusion that they want to buy your solution. And here's what I recommend. I recommend having your solution ready to go in something called a gold, silver, and bronze version, an entry-level package if someone doesn't have a lot of money to spend or if they want to get started slowly, a mid-level package that allows people to spend a decent amount of money and get started at a moderate pace, or a gold version which allows people to spend a lot of money and get as many results as they can possibly get if they want to go all in. Now remember this, the human brain is more than 50% dedicated to visual processing. And when you present a solution, you have to do so with visual aids. You've got to have either a brochure or a slide deck that explains the solution so that people can see it. If people can't see it, they're very unlikely to buy it. Now consider this, every single day of the week, people buy multi-million-dollar properties off the plan. They buy those because they've seen a brochure and they've seen a small scaled down plastic model of what the project's going to look like. And provided they can see the physical brochure and they can see that little scaled down model, they're happy to sign a contract for millions and millions of dollars just on those two visual aids. All the time, big companies will buy smaller companies off the back of a slide deck. And provided the executives can see a slide deck or they can see a physical brochure for that business, they're much more likely to go ahead and commit. I see all the time business owners who present their solution, they're talking about it, they're passionate, they're enthusiastic, but they do not give people a visual aid and they do not get anywhere near the number of sales that they should simply because they can't present their offer visually. So far, you've built some rapport, you've found out a bit of information about their situation, you've shared with them some insights, some methods, and finally you've presented the solution. That leads us to the discussion, where you invite discussion with the person about how they perceive the solution. So you might say something as simple as, how does that land for you? Or does that feel like it meets your needs? Or does that feel like it's a good fit for what you're looking for? This is where you shut up and let them think. Sometimes people think for as long as 15 or 20 seconds before they answer that question because they're thinking about it, they're taking it all in, and then they're getting ready for what they want to say next, which is going to start the discussion. And the discussion is about whether it meets their needs and whether it's at the right price. So this is where you're going to discuss all of the elements. You might discuss whether they related to the insight, whether they connected with the method, whether they think the solution is the right solution, whether they want bronze, silver, or gold, and how much they're prepared to spend. All of this becomes the discussion as to whether the solution is a good fit. Now, my biggest tip for the discussion is to never enter into what I call a conversational tennis match. Conversational tennis is where you get into question, answer, question, answer. They say, what about this? And you say, well, here's my answer to that. And they say, what about that? And you go, backhand, here's my answer to that. Instead of getting into conversational tennis, I want you to act like one of those ball boys on the tennis. And the ball boy just catches the ball, right? And then holds onto it and they wait until they're asked for it. What does that look like in conversation? They might say something like, I'm not quite sure if it's the right price. And you say, okay, so price is important. Is there anything else that you're thinking about? And you're just holding on to the price objection. And they say, well, I'm not sure about the timing. You say, okay, it's important to get the timing right. Let me just document that as well. Let me write that down. You might have a notepad. You might just write down price and timing. They might say, I'm not sure about the color. I'm not sure if I want blue or red or purple. Okay, interesting. So I'll just write down here, it's got to be either blue, red, or purple, but that still has to be decided. Is there anything else? And they say, no, that's it. That's all of the things. And then once they've said that's all of of the things, that is where you begin to respond to the things that they've said. You don't get into this back and forward and back and forward and back and forward because that feels exhausting in a conversation. You group it all together and you answer it all as one big thing. Now, the final step is called completing. If it turns out that someone is ready to buy on the spot, you complete the sale. You literally fill in all the paperwork. You begin the process of onboarding them as a customer. You fire off the emails that you need to fire off. You update your CRM. You do whatever it is that you need to do to complete the sale. But it's often the case that someone says, okay, I'm really sure that this is for me, but I need to get sign off from my board. Or they might say, I really love the solution in principle, but I just need 48 hours to see with a few of my team members if we can actually onboard this in the real world. Or they might say, I like the solution, but I'm not ready to get started. Would it be okay if you follow up with me in a month? Whatever happens next, you're going to have some completion activities. You're going to schedule some things. You're going to update a CRM. You're going to do all the things that allow you to either complete the sale and onboard the customer or to follow up when you agreed that you said you would. If someone does want to follow up, I would really recommend getting the follow-up into the diary as soon as possible. So if someone says, I need to follow up in 48 hours, make an appointment. Go back to the appointment setting phase and make another appointment. If someone says, let's talk again next month, see if you can get them to open their phone, look at their calendar, and just commit to another time so you can get that in the diary straight away so that you've completed by having a concrete plan going forward as to what happens next. Now, I've just given you so much here. This is 10 steps. Each one of these steps we could spend half an hour to an hour perfecting, but I wanted to give you the framework for making a great sale so that you at least know what it is that you're going to be working on. And I really want you to do some homework around this. See if you can figure out where are you strong, where are you weak already, and see if you can then work on your weaknesses so your overall sales presentation gets better. Okay, we're on the home stretch here. You've generated some leads, we've booked some appointments, we've had a great sales presentation. Now it's time to make sure that you're maximizing your sales opportunities. This is where the money hits the bank. For most businesses, between the presentation and the sales follow-up, you can double the business. Now, I don't say that lightly. I've done this across multiple businesses in multiple different industries, and I'm just really telling you, I promise you, if I came into your business, if you paid me a fortune to come and consult with you, I would be looking at the sales presentation and the sales follow-up as one of the primary ways to double the business and massively, exponentially improve your profit margins. How do we think about sales follow-up? You've had a presentation, and this is one of the peak moments where it's likely that someone is ready to go ahead and ready to sign up. In the first 48 hours after a sales presentation, that is a peak moment where someone is going to commit and sign up and begin onboarding as a client. And then it starts dropping off from there. Let's imagine that you've got anywhere between a week and 3 months to be able to do some sales follow-up where you're still relevant and you're still checking in and you're still dealing with a hot prospect for that amount of time. The research says that you want to follow up at least 7 times. What's crazy is that most salespeople spend all of their time talking to new people and they very rarely do the sales follow-up because sales follow-up is a little bit icky, it's a little bit exhausting, it feels frustrating, you've got to be creative as to why you're getting back in touch with someone, but you want to plan this out, you want to have some reasons to get back in touch, you want to tell people that there's some sort of a special offer that's coming up, you want to tell people that there's another insight that you want to share, you want to tell people that you've just recorded a new customer testimonial video and you wanted them to see it, or you wanted to follow up on anything that was discussed. So someone might say, I'm really interested in this, but after I get back from my annual holiday. Great, that's a time to follow up. Someone might have said, I'm really interested in this, but I need to check with my director. Okay, fantastic. That's another reason to follow up. So during the presentation, there were reasons that came up as good reasons to follow up, and you documented those on your notepad and you put them into your CRM. There's also things that you can orchestrate, like new customer success testimonials, new data or research that's just come out. Any of that stuff creates a great opportunity to follow up in that first window of maybe a few weeks to a few months. But let's be honest, there comes a point where there's no point following up anymore. You've followed up 6 or 7 times, you've done everything the research says that you should have done, and you've not yet made the sale. In which case, we want to move across to what we call the nurture sequence. The nurture sequence is about having a series of friendly touch points like social media touch points or emails, and they're there to just remind people that you exist, remind them that you've got great value, that you can solve problems, and maybe even remind people that they've got a frustration or a challenge that they themselves want to solve. What you want to do is put some thought into this nurture sequence. Now, what you want to include in this nurture sequence could be things like testimonial videos. It could be things like new insights. It could be things like special offers. It could be commentary on the news. Or you might even just touch base to say, are you still interested in getting this particular outcome? Or it could be things like sharing new research or new data that's just come out. So that's all things that could be covered in a nurture sequence. Now, finally, there comes a time to do something called a reactivation campaign. A reactivation campaign is where you step it up a little bit. So what you can do is do a very special little email called "Have you given up on X? Have you given up on weight loss? Have you given up on business growth? Have you given up on protecting your business from cybersecurity threats? Have you given up on having a romantic relationship?" So this really directly asks people, have you given up on this thing? And what you're going to say in this is you're going to say, we haven't heard from you for a while and we wanted to know, is this still important to you? Have you already solved the problem? Have you given up on it? Because if you have given up on it, we'd love to stop bothering you and stop sending you emails. So we'd love to take you off the email list. However, if you're still interested in this, could you let us know that it's still of interest to you? So you're asking for a soft signal of interest that it's still of interest to you. Now, if it is still of interest, you want to then send them an assessment or a calculator. An assessment is something that you can easily and simply build on scoreapp.com, and a calculator could be something as simple as an Excel spreadsheet that they download. Either way, you're asking them to re-engage and to commit that they haven't yet given up on getting some results here. Now, if they do that, they go back to the start, they become a lead in the pipeline, and you begin the lapse process all over again. Okay, now I waited until the end to share with you some of these amazing tips that will take this right through the roof for you. Number 1, record all of your sales presentations using an AI note taker, have them transcribed, and put all of it into ChatGPT. And what you want to do is prompt AI to help you to build an even better golf bag of insights, methods, and to improve your offer, to improve your solution. And you can use AI to do all of that once you've got a few transcribed meetings. The next thing you can do is ask AI to tell me the common themes between the sales presentations that went really well and the sales presentations that bombed. The next big tip that I've got is that sales and money love speed. The faster that you can follow up with people, the more likely you are to make money. What I don't want you to do is play it cool. I don't want a lead to come in on Monday and you think to yourself, wouldn't it be cool? Wouldn't I be mysterious if I followed up next week or if I followed up on Friday afternoon? No. If a lead comes in at Monday at 10 a.m., I want you to follow up at 10:01. I want you to say something like, I was just about to call someone and your name popped up on my screen and I thought I'd just pick up the phone and call you. Or I was just about to head out and meet with a client and an email came in that told me that you're interested in X, Y, and Z. So I thought I'd follow up straight away so that you've got that information right away. The faster you follow up, the more sales you're going to make. This is not dating. You don't have to be cool. You don't have to be aloof. You're far better off being rapid in the speed that you follow up with people. Now, my final tip is that in sales, confidence really matters. And the way that you get confidence is through repetition. It's getting into a rhythm. It's getting into consistency. It's doing sales meetings every single week. The last thing you want is to stop and start multiple times each quarter. You want to get into a lapse rhythm. I really want you to keep a dashboard. And what you're looking for is a consistent weekly lapse number. I want you to have like 50, 10, 6, 2 or something like that. And it just unfolds every single week. 50 leads come in, 10 people book appointments, 6 people have presentations, and 2 people go ahead and buy for something. And what you're looking for is that your lapse dashboard looks pretty consistent. For my companies, what my lapse dashboard looks like is like a gentle, gradual increase over time. We don't have like big spikes and drops and all of that sort of stuff. We're looking for consistency because you can build your business around consistency. It's very, very hard to employ people and to scale and to grow and to have predictable revenues if you're all over the place. Confidence comes from getting into a really good lapse rhythm. Just like fitness, it's all about like going to the gym every Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, whatever your routine is. Getting into the routine is half the battle. So whether it's you personally doing the laps or if you're getting a salesperson and you're hiring someone to do the laps, we're looking for consistency that gives you the confidence. So there you have it. We've just covered my sales methodology and I hope you've taken so much value from that. If you've stuck around to the end, I know that you are not someone who just goes scrolling randomly through YouTube. I know that you're the type of person who's really looking for breakthroughs. So if you got value from this video and you enjoyed it, you are absolutely going to love the next video that I want you to watch, which is the $1 Million Landing Page. I am really thrilled that we are sharing your entrepreneurial journey together. I'm glad that I can share some of my lessons from my entrepreneurial journey and you can take those lessons and apply it in your business as well. If you're enjoying these, please give this video a like, give it a comment, and if you know of another entrepreneur that would benefit from these, forward the link to this video to them as well. I hope your business is doing so well and I look forward to seeing you next time.